Hello and welcome to Phoenix Meets, in a special edition that looks back at 25 years in business for Phoenix Natural Gas. I'm delighted to be joined by Phoenix Energy Holdings Chairman Peter Dixon as we recognise 25 years of growth within the industry, some of the ups, some of the downs, and the sheer scale of the industry now as we enter into a new chapter of delivering energy needs for homes and businesses in Northern Ireland. Peter, thanks very much for joining us for this episode of Phoenix Meets. We are, of course, celebrating 25 years in business for Phoenix, but your love affair of the gas industry goes back a little bit longer than 25 years. How did that all come about?
Yeah, 1976, I can still remember myself walking down Webster Road in Liverpool and joining what was then North West Gas as an apprentice gas fitter when I was 16 years of age. Seems a lifetime. What's that, 42 years? No, more. It's got to be more than that now. It's a long time.
And then over the years that you developed into different roles within the gas industry that brought you to Northern Ireland, brought you to where we are here today.
You've got to remember that the gas board for people like me was fabulous. It took people in, it gave them a second level education, it gave them a skill, and it gave them a platform to move from or stay where they are. I moved on to welding, and I used to be in big factories, and then I started supervision for the first time. And by the time I was 26, 27, I was moving into other roles, which took me to headquarters in British Gas, and from there on, I moved through into senior management, and ended up here. I applied for the job in 1996. Global Gas, as it was, were looking for people to staff projects across the world, and one was in Northern Ireland. And I'd been on a fast-track program, a number of fast-track programs at British Gas, and they'd contacted me and said, you should apply for this job. And lo and behold, I ended up here as commercial director. I got the job in 96, and because of changes in British Gas, I started here the day the office was actually opening. We were still putting all the desks out in February 97.
So coming back here today, old Stumping Ground, good memories?
You know, it hasn't changed. I mean, I can't believe it's 25 years since we first came here. We were all fresh-faced. I mean, there wasn't many of us who were from the gas industry. There was a handful of us, and the rest of the people were all from Northern Ireland, from mixed backgrounds, which, as it came about, was absolutely fantastic for our business, because we needed that mixed bag of skills and backgrounds to take us forward. But it hasn't changed. And Kevin Lagan was our landlord at the time, who was a lovely fella.
And when you look back 25 years ago, new people coming into the business, do you think there was really an appreciation that you were the start of a very, very special journey in terms of gas coming to Northern Ireland?
No, not really. It was a job, but it was more than a job. It was so big. No one ever stood back and said, "Oh, isn't this massive? Isn't this going to be big? Isn't this going to change people's lives?" To us, it was just a really, really big task that every day we had to solve 1,000 solutions with 1,000 new answers and find things that people had never done before, and just a handful of us to do that. So yes, no, it was different times.
And I'm thinking again, going back to 96, 97, this area, this region, Northern Ireland, was a very different place. Do you think the investment that companies like Phoenix were making at the time, did that signal a change in the foreign direct investment and the sort of business culture around Northern Ireland at that time?
Well, it did, because it was very difficult to get people to invest in Northern Ireland for lots of reasons. And our project was huge at the time. It was the largest integrated gas project in the world, and it was many, many zeros behind the project. What we established was that we were going to be good news for everyone, but no one knew what the good news would look like. So whatever area we went into, it was going to be a change. It was a change for the best, and people embraced us, and probably people embraced us as a real local business who basically came and done what they said and didn't annoy people too much.
So I'm thinking back to sort of the early noughties, late 90s, the introduction of natural gas. There was so much excitement. There was a fanfare of PR. There was marketing campaigns. We had Don French, we had Neil Morrissey on adverts. We even had a little caravan that used to go about Belfast and the housing estates to promote natural gas. But it wasn't all plain sailing at the start.
No, far from it. What we had was we had a plan and we had a license that had been negotiated by people who were not going to be delivered on the ground. And for lots of reasons, it was probably as good as it could get. But the plan that was in place was never going to be able to deliver gas, not to people when they needed it, not to people's homes and businesses they needed it. And that had to be radically reshaped. What we'd also been great at doing was talk about what we were going to do and the corporate end of it. But there'd been no real appreciation of how that would actually be done, how we would install gas meters in people's homes and businesses, how we would find the people locally to install things on our behalf and have the equipment available. All that had to be done, and it all had to be done very fast. So if you take from the February when I arrived, by the April, we had the installer network in place. Remember, there was 6 of us on the first night. I actually bumped into David Main, who was one of the first 6 the other day walking along Hollywood. We'd set up the gas industry forum. We had established that we were bringing a group of people over to start selling into commercial premises. So I remember going to Feldon Training Centre to do a talk about Phoenix. And I'd only been there a couple of weeks. And I said, we're on a distance. Someone in the audience said, I don't think you've got a chance of doing this, never mind in 10 years, in 100 years. And I said to him, look, we'll have 1,000 industrial commercial customers by Christmas. And they said, you'll be lucky to have 10. I think at the time we had maybe 30. We brought 6 people over to augment the people we had here. And by the Christmas, we didn't have 1,000, we had 680. But what we had was a lot of learning, because we could learn how to do things, how to do them and how not to do them. And that was really the start of the business as it is today. It was then that we realised that we were a gas connections business.
So you talk about that independent trade, and as I understand it, that model wasn't typical whenever you look at other neighbouring regions. So we had installers, merchants, manufacturers, training centres, and the business trusted the trade and the skilled workforce in Northern Ireland, but many of the businesses were bringing all that in-house. So was that a good call? What led to that?
Well, I'd come from, my job before was I'd been with British Gas Retail, having been with British Gas for a long time before that. And to me, that model was never going to work here. What I wanted to do is I wanted to bring local entrepreneurs in family businesses, and I wanted to say to them, look, we're going to spend all this money, and customers are going to spend all this money. We want them to spend their money with you. And we had a vision at the time that we'd have about 400, 450, 500 local companies who were merchants, distributors, architects, designers, specifiers, installers, retailers, who would all rise every morning and work to make Phoenix a success. So they would become Phoenix with a big P, if you like, and we would be Phoenix Natural Gas with the small p, and we would just be part of trying to make sure that they could satisfy what customers needed. Now, to do that, we had to help select people, we had to train people, we had to talk to people. We brought everyone into that, if you like, that package individually, so they felt part of us. And we chatted them through, and we seen where they were up to. And that model has been so robust through the years, and it's still as it was then, it is today, and it feels as fresh.
Yeah, that's interesting. You point out that it still feels as fresh as we look forward now to a new chapter of energy needs and the ability for the gas industry to continue serving those needs. The trade and 2,500 people employed in the trade have got to be a key asset in that regard.
Look, the one thing that stands the test of time is Northern Ireland people. We were one of the greatest, this city was one of the greatest cities in the world at one stage. It was well ahead of Dublin. It was alongside the likes of Liverpool and Birmingham and London, because it had people who could make things happen. It had people who could see an opportunity and make the most of that opportunity. And what has been demonstrated with the gas industry is we could show people the way We could support them, we could be there for them, but they made it happen. Now, if you take that going forward with any new technology, with any different type of gas that we put into the network, and don't forget, there's billions of pounds being spent and funded by customers to build all these networks. We've got the people that were as forward-looking then, still here today, to be as forward-looking going forward. So I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever that the innovators that we had are still here. The entrepreneurs that we had are still here, except they're now even wiser. And we, Northern Ireland, are now miles ahead of the rest of Great Britain and even the British Isles in terms of where we take this next stop to carbon neutral, or whatever that lower carbon future is.
Before we get on to some more detail on that, you have businesses nowadays who are so focused on their corporate responsibility, on doing the right thing. But even before we came on camera, we were reflecting back on some of the businesses that your team used to support 25 years ago. And if you don't mind me saying, you used to be quite obsessive when it came to the term serving our community. We were there to serve our community. Where did that thinking come from 25 years ago, before acronyms and accreditations were put together for this?
Well, from my own point of view, I mean, I joined Northwest Gas when it was a public sector organisation. And utilities, even though they're privately owned, should still be run as if they're owned by the customer. So everything you do right. You do on behalf of the customer. Phoenix is a private company, but we serve the communities that we operate in, and we serve the customers we have, not as a private company, but as just a gas company. And I think that is how I was brought up. So all these things we now call CSR, one thing, it was just doing the right thing. When we moved here, doing the right thing was supporting the Dockers Club, which is on the doorstep. We went round to see them within a couple of weeks. A fellow called Dave Bowers and I went to see them. We arranged to have our Christmas function there. You know, businesses weren't doing things like this. You know, all of the industry that we have now, all of the local installers and the people, they became our buddies and our friends. And it was just how we did business. And it was to keep ourselves small, to keep ourselves in touch. And the first time I came over, I stayed at the Le Mans and I met Francis, who used to be the boss there. And there was probably me and about 6 other people staying in the whole hotel. And then the next morning he met me at the reception. He asked me what I was doing and I told him. And I was so taken back by how nice he was. We rang him up a couple of weeks later. We said, look, we're starting this thing called Installer Evenings. Can we use your hotel? He said, no problem, come along. Francis was there. He was putting the chairs out. He was sorting everything out. And they're still held there to this day. So 25 years on, every single month since then, we've used the Le Mans Hotel, because that's what we do. We have relationships with people for a long time, because business is about people you can trust.
So back to the late 90s, and you get the green light to accelerate the network builds, but that's only half a job, because you got to win hearts and minds and get customers connected onto the network. So how do you put an opportunity like that into a plan of action?
What we had was, we kept on talking about it, a lot of money to spend and a big network to build. But what we also had was we had finite resource, so we could build about £40 million worth of network a year, including connections. So what we've done, we turned around and said, right, where shall we start? We're not going to build this geographically anymore. The plan initially was to build out on a geographic basis, but the problem is markets don't operate like that. Large customers wanted it yesterday, and they were situated all around Greater Belfast. New build were going up in different areas in a donut shape, and the housing executive had a programme to change to natural gas, which wasn't on a geographical basis. So what we turned around and said was, let's fast track getting gas built out, the mains out of these properties. We went to the Siemens mission. We borrowed the office off them for a couple of days. We basically plastered the walls with flip charts, massive maps, and we all stood around in the room, the industrial commercial people, the new build people, the domestic sales people, anyone who had any knowledge, and we said, right, mark on all the areas that we know that need gas straight away. And we started bunching them together in wards, and then we started writing them up on the wall, and we went year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, and I think we went out to year 7, and then we had all the areas listed, and they were broke down: industrial, commercial, domestic, housing executive, new build. And that was the plan. We then put that together in an A to Z, which was all on paper, gave everyone an A to Z, and said, right, if anyone rings now and says, when am I getting gas? You can tell them. You can tell them what year they're getting it, and as time went by, we could tell them what month they were getting it. And before we knew it, from all the chaos of when can I have it, we had a plan of attack where we would take gas to.
So rolling on 25 years, standing here now in 2021, over £1 billion of investment in the gas industry, over 500,000 properties with gas available, 12 million tonnes of carbon having been avoided, 2,500 people employed in the local industry, maybe more. You must look back and think, my goodness, the journey's come a long way since you were introduced to the offices here in Clarendon.
Well, it has, but the way I look at it, it came together and went forward in little tiny bits. We tried to make all the little decisions right the first time. Obviously we didn't, but we tried to make as many as we can right. We also done everything on a face-to-face basis. We also wrote down and categorised and procedurised everything we'd done, so we'd try and do it right once to do it right 1,000 times. And we stuck with the best people we had. The people developed over time. We had a great view that we would grow our own timber. It's like, see yourself, you joined the company in sales, and you're now one of the directors on the main board of the business. And that's what we tried to do in my way, and I'm sorry about this for Man United or even Norwich supporters. We tried to run the company like Liverpool Football Club. We kept it tight, we kept it easy to get on with, and it was all about people, and no one was more important than the next. And I think 25 years on, as I look into the business now as chairman, and obviously I'm not involved on a day-to-day basis, I still see a business which feels like a family business, which feels like a non-hierarchical business, which still knows that the most important thing it has are its people and its customers.
So I know you'll tell me that 25 years in some ways has went too quickly.
Yeah.
But when it comes to energy and it comes to energy transition, the one thing that our journey has shown is things take time. People don't like change. What other lessons do you think could be applied to what Phoenix Natural Gas has done over the last 25 years for moving forward in terms of the energy challenges of the next 25 years?
We are in a unique position in Northern Ireland where we have a brand new gas network. It doesn't matter what gas we put into it. If we can put a different gas in than natural gas, and natural gas is already reducing people's carbon footprint by 50% if they change the heating from coal to natural gas. I mean, imagine that, 50%. And if we can reduce that even further, then the cheapest thing to do is put to another gas. And one of the gases people are talking about, the hydrogen, I like to think of that as high-speed gas. I think it'll be a gas, it'll go in, it'll still feel the same, keep costs low, get carbon as low as we possibly can, but use what is there already. Government and the gas industry already work well together. They know each other, they know the cut of how they operate. And to me, whilst the future is always far away, when you have the ability to change, albeit things take time, it will always come forward. Things that seem impossible become possible overnight. It seems impossible now, 25 years ago, that we would build a gas industry under the highways and the byways and the streets and the lanes of Northern Ireland as it was then. We had a fantastic support from the local communities that we worked in. We were obviously a nuisance because of the amount of work we were doing, but I think without those community support we couldn't have done it. And I don't see the change going forward any different. I think the next 25 years will go even faster. I think the change to a lower carbon future through gases will happen within the next 10 years. And even looking forward to next year, we're going to be injecting biomethane into the network. and all that is being worked through with the regulator at the moment. I think the future is great for gas. I think it's great for the gas industry, and long may that continue for another 25 years.
Seems like a great place to end, Peter. Thank you so much for your time, and as you say, here's to another great 25 years. Thank you.
Thanks for asking me. Thank you.